Welcome everyone. We'll start 5-10 minutes, so we'll just get some small talk just now. If you want to jump on socials and send people the link, the more the merrier. That's probably my favourite episode, the fourth one, just because it's got my family in it and all that. It's nice. It's very nice. If you'd have told me 10, 15 years ago that would have happened, I would have told you to fuck right off. So yes, if you want to just also give me some feedback on the sound quality, I can make some adjustments. I like to kind of half light myself here, just to show that complicated, enigmatic duality between darkness and light. Yeah, very Tim Burton. Not quite as pretentious though. Not anymore. So welcome. If you leave a wee comment, just let me know how the sound is. Good, brilliant. Good feedback on the audio. We'll just let a few more people filter in, and I'll just quickly get a wee share again on the socials. On the socials and that, the contributors, particularly in this episode, just need to pay tribute to everyone who took part. Whenever you're dealing with sensitive topics, particularly topics that aren't impacting you directly, whether you're talking about gender, you're talking about race, or anything of that nature, there is always an anxiety, both when you're in the middle of doing the filming or preparation for it, and also upon broadcast. I've had mixed experiences with attempts at engaging with these issues, some to do with things that I had to learn or ignorance that I had, or the crazy social media environment where one line of something gets recontextualized as something, and but I realized that that shouldn't dissuade me from trying to talk about these issues, and considering the public platform that I have, then it's important that I do. So it was good to see that sequence come out so strong. It was a testament to the contributors who were very generous with their time. And we'll just let some more of the troops get in about it. That's Becky disappeared up the stairs. In fact, if you listen closer, you can hear her peeing. For anyone who's that nosy, you get right nosy people. See if you share a picture of your living room or something. You say it's like child, you know what I mean, doing something funny, and you share the picture online, and and then somebody will tweet the picture back to you, but zoomed in on a very specific detail of your living room that you never noticed before, and a very specific question about it. These are all the interesting quirks of being moderately well known for brief periods of time. Okay, cool. Well, we're about to hit 50, so that's pretty good. Let's have a wee look through some of these comments. If you've just joined us, welcome. Expedition Donna, absolutely brilliant. The whole series and Poverty Safari helped me get my head around my somewhat confused position in society. Well done you. It is confusing, and I think most people, whatever class they come from experience confusion. It's just that the specificity and type of confusion that we're interested in here. Papa Boy, top class, quality, excellent, mate. Brilliant. That's all great. Just those first 4 words are really, it's a great sentence. Top class, quality, excellent, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like that. See if I was just woke up like that every morning, do you know, by a nice compliant wife, just giving me constantly positive feedback. Becky Wallace, Emma Gerd, that's thank you for your contribution. Kyle King, sound as mate. I guess I should say thank you, Becky, for a contribution, because that's, I mean, we obviously have, I'm not in the business to like tell my wife how I feel on national media. But the contribution of family generally when you're in the process of filming particularly is really important.
Are you trying to say if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here?
Yes, Becky, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is if it wasn't for Becky, I wouldn't be here. But it is important, you know, and because you can't really get into the right headspace to be really present at work if you don't feel confident about leaving. And that can be difficult to do when you've got young kids. Although not as difficult as staying to look after them. Daniela Latina, absolute class in capital letters episode and great series, Darren. Thank you. You're welcome and thank you for watching. Amy B, you're a regular on these streams, so thank you. Thanks, Darren. Enjoyed your book and your TV work. Relevant, relatable, and look forward to your future projects. Kath Campbell, Darren, do you not think you can get to a point, even if you're earning well and have a mortgage, you choose where your loyalty lies? For me, with the working class, absolutely, Kath. My fear is that I would still feel that sense of solidarity, but if I'm not, as I do, consistently visiting, you know, the front line, as it were, and immersing myself in that social reality, then I'll internalize assumptions to fill in the gaps in my knowledge. A bit like a lot of the great and the good have done around things like meritocracy and other myths that people have conjured to explain inequalities. So it's my concern's not out of a desire to just up and off because I can't be bothered with class discussion anymore, although there are a lot of other things I would like to write about and challenge myself to write about. But it's more that would I begin to undermine that cause by speaking from a place of ignorance? I mean, even just since in the last 10 years, I mean, think about how the welfare system has changed. So when I'm writing in my book currently about welfare, it's involved a lot of research because my experiences of the welfare state are not the experiences that people are having now. But if I didn't have that humility to know that, I could be going on question time talking all sorts of crap and really letting the side down. So that's what my concern is. It's not because I can't be bothered. It's because I think, and hopefully my work has contributed in some small way to this. I think the young people coming up are going to be far more effective in the long run, because hopefully this isn't something that they'll learn later and then apply to their lives. Hopefully this is something that they'll take right through from secondary school and they'll have their eyes open to it as they go, and keeping all their teachers and whoever they're dealing with on their toes. Funk Specs, sorry to see the end of the series. Me as well. We only originally were doing 3 hours, but we got so much strong material. And I think just my kind of evolution as a broadcaster, in terms of applying the lessons I learned from the first series, and also just being in a better mental health space this time around, I think that gave the director and the editors more options Etienne, great seeing you, bro. Really enjoyed the series, by the way. Cheers, Kath. Gordon Sterling, love the show, Darren. Are you in the Pontins on welcome list for your holidays 2021? No, not I know of. People judge postcode and accent without a doubt. I'm working class, but years at drama school as a kid means my accent does not. Man, Rosie, Tam and me really enjoyed your final episode in the series. Well done, and look forward to many more in future. Great seeing the family on telly, especially when we can't see them in real life. Yeah, it was nice, wasn't it? That's nice. It's like a wee video photo album. I thought my dad came across really well as well. Frighteningly reasonable man these days. Becky Walsh, you're the best. Thanks, baby. Expedition Donna does not represent my background. I've always been aware of accent. Laura Owens, love the acknowledgement of the role further education plays in our communities, often seen as the poor relation, but as an avenue for so many to further opportunities. Absolutely. And it's harder work. It's harder work for the staff. It's multifaceted work. It involves care and compassion and love, and not just imparting information to be committed to memory and recited at a later date. That's not to be dismissive of scholarship and academia and university education generally. Obviously, we require that for people to go into the real specialisms that allow all sorts of things in society to occur. You know, surgeons and engineers and all of this stuff. But I think if the universities were modified slightly to incorporate some of the best practices that we see in the colleges, then they would become more dynamic institutions generally. But that's something further down the line. Compliance is my middle name, as I look up to you, but I look down on him. To Ronnie's sketch. I'll need to look that up. Cheers, Papa Boy. Eddie Buggy, people are people when you get to meet them. Absolutely. We all have kind of caricatures of people in our minds. You know, whatever we're thinking about, you know, Tories or loony lefties or centrist dads or whatever. And, you know, I think that's magnified by social media. But then we go out into the world and we deal with people. I mean, Tom, obviously the upper class guy. No, he said some provocative things, and obviously in the editing process, it's important that we bring that stuff out. But when you Terry, Tom, Fenella, they spent a whole day together in that casino where we did the filming, and a great rapport between them. Even where there were areas of disagreement, Fenella was very funny and always making fun of me, you know. And I'd only met her that day, and she was making fun of me, you know, saying that you're going out to take your heroin and all that. Do you know what I mean? And like, it was a good laugh because we all had it off. So the thing that I find disappointing is that because of the ravines that divide us socially, it means we don't get to mix a lot. And sometimes when we mix, we learn, and you know, things are I don't know, less simple. Can I ask why you felt the young girl was being precious? No, not precious, precocious. Precocious just being a kind of word that you would. I mean, I know it has I know what it means, but I think in some context, precocious is something, you know, someone who just has great potential, someone who is one to watch, you know. And the younger a person is when they're precocious, then sometimes that can be a bit threatening for an older person. JPF, how come you filmed yourself drinking Bucky and talking to 10-year-olds and that's okay, but you don't like anyone else doing that? Jai P. That's a good question. You're talking about the Glasgow Gangs documentary. I didn't film myself. I was working for a company. It was a wee job that I got. I didn't ask to be filmed drinking the bucky. I bought the bucky because I had a drink problem, and I was drinking on the job. And when I was drinking the bucky, then the guy who was making the film asked if he could film me drinking it. So that's how that kind of came together. Also, the what happens in that film's not necessarily an accurate depiction of what was going on at the time. In the place, as soon as people found out there was somebody in the park with cameras, the place just, the energy changed, you know. And there was a wee guy in one of the things in the park who was unconscious, and I don't know if it was like what he had taken or what had happened. But I felt uneasy, partly because at that stage my mental health was all over the place. So I had a kind of residual anxiety, which is partly why I was drinking at work. But also because I know that community, and I'm from that area roughly, you know. When I saw that film, it wasn't exactly what I thought I was making. Let's just say that, right? And if you look at a lot of my work since, you'll see that I learned a lot of lessons from that, because I was only 25, 26. So I didn't do anything again after that until I had some kind of editorial sway over what the tone of the thing was, what the content of the thing was, a sense of authorship over it. Yeah, so it was just part of the learning process. But I don't think you're going to find many examples of me doing that kind of work in my career, or in my community, in my work as a community artist, or in my work as a musician, or a journalist, whatever you want to call it. But I thank you for pointing that out, because it is important that we're all held to account. Christina Graham, absolutely brilliant 4 episodes. Thank you for your commitment and honesty. Everyone in our family loved this, and your book Poverty Safari. Thank you very much, Christina. Appreciate that. Eddie Buggy, where and what we are born into defines the people we get to meet. Yeah, it does. It does to a large extent. And we'll tend to come across people who have similar experiences to us. They might come to different conclusions about it. And well, that means we get really to know our terrain very intimately. It also means we need to do a hell of a lot of speculating about what's going on the other side of the tracks. And it can become difficult to change your viewpoint when it's become so hardwired, when you're confronted with new information. Anthony Mack, brilliant episode tonight. I have a Gorbals accent and I do stuff on the radio. I love the speech experiment you did. It's great that the BBC favour local accents more. Yeah, BBC Scotland. But we're working on it. Expedition Donna, I never met at uni, but many people think I have. Hang on. Ta-da. Let's see. Oh no, there's JP again. He's raging. Why is it you can film poverty for your own personal gain, but not anyone else? Okay. Well, when did I say no one else could do it? I think I've been critical of very specific examples of poverty being filmed and people being portrayed unfavourably, or having certain narrative extracted for them and from them in service of a news agenda. The Jeremy Kyle Show, reality TV generally, Benefit Street, The Scheme. And I spoke out and have written very strongly against these things, and also outlined in detail where I think that they could do things better, because I recognise people aren't setting out to make things worse or portray people in a negative light. But if you've not experienced something like addiction and you go in, you're only going off what you personally find fascinating, and that might not necessarily be what's most important, you know? So, why is it you can film poverty for your own personal gain, but not everyone else? Also, this idea about it being for personal gain, I've only been working professionally for about 2 years. I've been working in communities
For my gain,
for a long time. A very long time. I first started out as an activist and a community organiser in my teens, set up a theatre group in Pollock, challenging the local social inclusion partnership about its democratic processes, asking people, why is it we don't get to decide what the youth initiatives are about if it's all about empowering us? Working in prisons, working in street corners. Then I went back to train for a year in arts education, got a qualification, and then continued that work. So the fact that after 10, 15 years of doing something that I believe in, and then eventually getting public acknowledgement for it or being paid for my work, I'm not going to apologise for that. And your third question is, don't you want to answer these questions, eh? And I think you'll find I just answered them all thoroughly. I hope that those answers are satisfactory. I can also answer them in middle class if you would like. It's perfectly up to you. Papa boy, let's face it, you're a younger generation than myself. I must admit, I couldn't believe when my daughter told me about social sciences at school. I'd never heard of it. Your books in this series should be in the education system. I think it is. Excellent series, Darren. Intelligent, brave, insightful, and honest. Very thought-provoking as well. My wife is jumping in to defend me. I don't think JP. I don't think I need Hannah's. It's just a wee guy asking me questions, but I appreciate. Maybe he is making his own way down the questions and hasn't got to yours yet, JP. Seems like he wants his cake and eat it. He won't answer because he's aware he's profiting from poverty. No, I'm being paid for writing about something that I have insight about and something that I've experienced. And people, the amount of messages I've got from people saying it's the first book they ever read. I get messages every other day from people. Because of your book, I went to university. Because of your book, I went into this profession. People get a lot of sense of clarity when they finally see something in culture that reflects their experience really authentically and specifically, because there's an absence of that kind of experience in our culture. Am I having my cake and eating it? I mean, I guess I am. Yeah, I've been able to keep my integrity while exploring my dreams professionally. And I know you're talking to me like an idiot, but it's not an idiot that can pull that kind of stunt off. So, Daniela Latina, I teach sociology at access level, and what yourself and Laura said is correct. It's not essentially the content that has to be taught, it's the belief that they can do it. Absolutely. I mean, I guess there are questions about what's the role of education. Is it to train activists? I think the role of education should be to teach the social history and then let people decide for themselves how they apply it. I'm not so keen on the idea of like aspects of university just becoming a conveyor belt to produce activists. I don't think that that's the best way of going about it. I'm not saying that's what you're talking about, but I know that that is a feature of university education just now in terms of the humanities departments and social sciences and stuff. But that's just my view. And the only reason I say that is because how radical an education can you get within a state funded institution? That's the only thing. I mean, so people might develop a sense that what they're doing is really radical. But if you're learning it in a university, there are questions as to how subversive it truly is. Pina, thought provocative, critical thinking, powerful series. Thank you. Really like the discussion about the problem being the people who create labels to define other people's future. Yeah, he was a lovely man. And while I disagreed with him about a couple of things that he said, there's a lot to be said about how persuasive a person can be just by being nice. I think a lot of time we think it's the fact, just cold hard facts are what's going to move people, and if they don't move, then they must just not like facts. And actually, it's not just the facts; it's the kind of, it's your manner, it's your willingness to listen, it's humor, and just trying to be pleasant to be around. Funk Specs, I've recommended this series to many of my friends, some who work in a guidance role in schools and loved his documentaries. He's just changed his role, but I'm sure he'll pass on his thoughts. Good stuff. Hey, not watched The Last Step yet. However, I wanted to ask, what are your opinions on who's to blame and how blame segregates people down intersectional lines? PS, new tune is Barry. Cheers. Intersectional lines. So I'm just trying to really kind of glean what the question is. What are your opinions on who's to blame and how blame segregates people down intersectional lines? If you're talking about intersectionality, I'm on board with analysing in more depth as is outlined in the intersectionality theory. Professor Kimberly Crenshaw being someone who really developed it, specifically because she was trying to draw out how women of colour in America experience the compounding impact of both being female and being black. I think the problem sometimes with intersectionality as it's taught is that it's been what you would say reified, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, is when people assert theoretical frameworks as if they were factual. So a lot of the other stuff that comes with intersectionality, a lot of the activism that comes with it, like privilege, the theory of privilege, or redefining words that already have quite common meanings, like racism, or even just to certain things like black people can't be racist and all that. These are provocative statements that would need to be discussed. But with the reification of postmodernism, what happens is people are taught that that's a fact, and there's no discussion, and that anyone who wants to discuss it has internalized it, and that they're part of the structure of oppression. And these are all fascinating theories, and really will tie your head in knots, and it's really good to challenge yourself with these things. But I think in the age of social media, there has been a bit of a a breakdown in communication with regards to these issues. And while I'm on board with equality for all, and while I'm not necessarily in the business of telling people how they should fight for their own equality or whatever. I think the fact that a lot of this stuff emerged on campus tells you a lot about why it hasn't made a lot of a sense to the general public. I mean, just go and read the first academic journal you can find, and let me know how pleasant a reading experience or how relatable it is. Dan Farr, hey, not watched the last episode yet, just about. All right, that's you. Rosie Kane, as I once said to Lord James Douglas Hamilton, we both grew up in estates and we could have done with a wee bit of help from social work. Then we both ended up MSPs. Yeah, absolutely. Wondering what impact lockdown might have on socialising between classes, especially with the concerns about education attainment gap. Yeah, it remains to be seen how things will pan out in schools. Obviously, the Scottish Government's got a lot of other things on its plate right now, including this inquiry into the handling of all this stuff around salmon investigations, and we'll just have to sit tight and see how things pan out tomorrow. Stephen Bennett, who is the director of these films and a wonderful collaborator. Hello, Stephen. Well done for giving so much of yourself, Darren. It's such a privilege filming you and your honesty throughout. There's wee Jip F. Jipe. Good answer, man. I'll take that for now. But I'm watching you. Good, mate. Good. You're not the only one. And don't worry. If you're trying to instill in me the acute and constant sense that I'm being watched, just know that I live with that feeling every day, you know, and not necessarily just from being in the public eye either. You know, that level of paranoia is something that you live with as a result of things that you've been through. So I try to conduct myself with an awareness I'm being watched by people with your sort of opinion. And that's why that informs how I approach things and why I have conflicts. It's just that they use different self-harming or coping behaviours like workaholic. Sorry, I didn't find the first half of that question, unfortunately. We've got... Just watch. This idea of personal gain is important, you know, because if what I was doing was exploiting people, then there would be an issue there. But I think the thing that our films, things different about our films from previous films that have tackled these subjects is, first of all, you have people from all social classes working on them, you know. And we went into it with a very clear objective about the integrity of how we wanted to work, and how we would treat people's stories. I mean, there have been countless times in interviews where we have let contributors know at various stages of the interview, if there's anything that you have disclosed in this interview that you're uncomfortable with, just stop the interview and just say. So we're doing the opposite of what traditionally happens, which is somebody blurts something out and the journalist throws that in the story. So every phase of the development of these films, there's a very strong sense that we've got ethical obligations as well as journalistic obligations to present the truth. I would say we go further than most people who are operating on this kind of terrain. And myself and the director in particular, I can't speak for other TV companies or the BBC, but we're not just interested in these stories, we're interested in modelling a different way of working with people from diverse backgrounds, with vulnerable people. So if I happen to get paid for my work, it's been a long time coming. And you're right, I'm just, you don't want all yes men around you. You answered well, so respect, man. Cheers. Appreciate it. See, that's how you diffuse a conflict straight away. I understand where that person's coming from. Kim Robertson, would it be helpful to have language that describes individuals who are in that transition between classes? Maybe your personal class changes life, but you certainly show it stays with you. I think social mobility is an attempt to capture it, but social mobility doesn't capture a number of things. First of all, it tends to capture upward social mobility. We don't really talk about people who are falling down. But also social mobility just implies you're ascending, therefore that's great, therefore you're doing well. But I can speak from experience, there's a tremendous cost that comes with it. And part of that cost is feeling like you don't belong anywhere, or just being a little too aware of aspects of how you present socially in different contexts. But I'm trying to work on that, because I realise some of that's not to do with class, it's more to do with insecurity, maybe sometimes ego. And the more I kind of manage my mental health, the more I don't have to worry about that stuff too much. Mate, don't explain yourself. If you know the history, you know the history, and that's it. No, I know. I don't explain myself all the time. But if someone's got to take the time to jump on the live chat, it's the first critical question I've had about this series. It's the first critical question I've had on these chats. I know people will be sitting in the living rooms like, "What this fucking bar bag?" Do you know what I mean? Or
Maybe.
what is that? I bet my wife certainly does that. Oh man, that's bar bag, mate. Oh mate, oh do you remember him, man? He used to come about with headphones on all the time. Oh mate. Oh mate. But the everybody's been lovely. There's Sammy Madden, my best man and pal for school growing up. Tell the truth, mate, you're for Giffnock. Amazing. Also, when did Cardonald College get a fancy name? I don't know. Personally, I think it's got something to do with me, right? Any educational institution that I've been in has had its name changed while I was in it, right? My school got renamed Penley Annex, and Cardonald College got renamed Glasgow Clyde College. Cool story, bro. In this world, we will always have a ruling class and a slave class. What matters is taking care of the slaves and giving them good living conditions, also opportunity to progress. Danielle is clarifying her point about sociology. No, absolutely. And I think I said that when I answered you. I didn't think you were suggesting that. But it was just a thought that came to me, because I know that it is taught sometimes in some contexts, particularly, critical theory and stuff like that. If he was having his cake and eating it, right, that's fine. I don't want to deal with those ones. But thanks for people who leapt to my defence and feel that I might have been unfairly treated. Marginalised backgrounds, they don't want to go to Glasgow Uni, even though their personal experience and critical thinking are sometimes far superior to first years coming off the conveyor belt. I mean, we need to broaden the net. You know, I think there's been a lot of talk about increasing access for people from working class backgrounds, but I would need to see what the actual data is in terms of how many people from working class backgrounds the universities retain, because I'm sure that the figures for people who have enrolled have gone up. How many of them stuck it out, you know, for the 3 or 4 years, and if they didn't, why? Now, obviously, an institution and how it works can't always account for why someone decides it's not for them or someone drops out, but it'll be interesting to see. Do you think all white people are racist? No. Enjoyed listening to you earlier on compassion and politics chat. You were asked if you would think about standing. Feel it needs to change to allow more diversity, I'm going to say. Sammy Madden, you deserve the credit for shining a light on these issues, mate. It's a welcome change from celebrity makes a cake. Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. But don't rule it out. Do you know what I mean? You never know how things might pan out for me, mate. Liam Mason, growing up in a working class background, it's hard to accept class situations sometimes post social mobility in my mind. I see middle class being Thatcherites and everything I grew up believing against. It's difficult. It can be difficult, innit? It's a lot of people became middle class because of Thatcher, but also a lot of the people who became middle class because of Thatcher actually became middle class because they were still benefiting from all of the post-war reforms that led to record levels of social mobility. And what you notice is that as Thatcherism came in and a lot of those reforms were undone, and the economic trajectory of Britain changed and the economic character of Britain changed, we saw a decline in a lot of that progress. Except this time, the poor were to be blamed for it. So that was the big shift. That was the big shift in how our economy is and our culture is organised. Just laughing at Sammy. What replaces social class? Not necessarily meritocracy, more recognition. Nothing replaces social class. There's always going to... Social class as a concept loses a lot of its purchase when the inequalities are not as galling. I think most people would accept that you can't have equality of outcome unless you're radically changing society in a way that's going to superimpose so much stuff onto so many people that it would probably be a form of oppression, right? There are going to be differences between people, even in people from the same social class. The point is, society shouldn't be so much of a lottery that your life expectancy is reduced by 10 years automatically just by being born in a certain postcode. And then this is no longer a radical thing to say, I don't think. Last week, you responded to a comment I made with you moving on as Becky says your emergence, drama, appeals, writing or acting. I can see acting. I started out acting, and I would like to get involved in screenwriting or taking music into different contexts, like theatre. I did that at the Fringe. There was a few things were in development. I was working on a thing with Jim Sutherland, a kind of a musical, you know, and we were going to get it funded, and it just didn't come together. It didn't come together, and that was a time where pretty much I was being offered a lot of projects and didn't realise I'd said yes to too many things. You been offered any movie roles yet? No. Love the series. Thanks, Craig. I used to work in a call centre. Not as bad as the show. I felt shocked seeing the practices in the cold light of day, having spent a lot of time away from the job. It's intense. And I think, see, some of the people watching it who are working in call centres, they probably are so adjusted to the normality of that sort of labour market that only by seeing it in the films do they start to say, hang on a minute, like, I thought this was normal. I didn't realise that our lunch breaks are all timed specifically so we don't all meet up outside and start talking about how shit it is to work here. Did you get a bit of Daniel's cake and did you eat it? No, I didn't actually. I didn't. It's under a massive pile of Paw Patrol toys that he's received throughout the course of today. It's my son's 5th birthday, for anyone who's wondering what I'm saying there. It was his birthday 5 years. Oof, it's mental, innit? Okay, let's have a wee look. I'm nodding along with your responses to the comments, and yes, you deserve to be paid for your work. I mean, I obviously get well paid now. But like I've done thousands of hours of voluntary work in communities. Hours and hours and hours and hours and hours upon hours of doing things with people, as anyone should. I never said I was an activist, and never said I was an organizer. I just did it. Just did these things and still do these things. Because that's what I've been raised to do. You're a legend, Loki. Thank you. As someone who doesn't always talk proper, I've been greatly inspired by you a number of times the last few years. I still bump Trigger Warning as well. It's a solid jam. Thank you, mate. Yeah, I'm proud of that record as well. Hopefully I get the next one finished some point this century. Papa Boy, not Mark with Gift Knock. I've spent a night at the molestation station. No comment. Douglas Murray. You're not the Douglas Murray. Love the shows, Darren. Bringing up the subject of class, it's been forgotten but has never changed in Scotland. Class divisions ever present, with or without. Tories. Let's see. Okay, nearly getting to the bottom here. Hierarchy is inevitable. There's ways to go about it though, absolutely. How do we affect radical change on a national level when we aren't offered radical change at the ballot box? Organise. That's how it goes. And it's hard, thankless work, and you really need to be passionate about it. I'm not an organizer in the traditional sense. I lend my voice or I add visibility to the real organisers. My role is I think we all supplement each other in different ways. I think organisers are a very specific type of role that doesn't involve often getting a lot of credit. It certainly doesn't involve making money. Although it can be formalized. If you a trade union, for example, you start out an activist, then you get a job. You should. You said it's the first criticism you've had, and then you went straight to a stupid accent to dismiss me. I wasn't dismissing you. I was making fun of. I was doing an impersonation of people I imagine in my head, or who I've seen on social media from time to time. Disputing things that I've said about my life, or trying to make out that I grew up in the posh bit of Pollock. Wherever the posh bit, wherever the posh bit of Pollock was. So I wasn't impersonating you. How could I impersonate you? I've never heard you speak. If you could send an audio clip, I'd be happy to do my rendition of what you sound like. Do Just as the poorer class are more affected by addiction deaths with trauma at the heart, are similar levels of trauma also there in the middle class, but that's a truncated message. Hang on. It's just that they use different self-harming or coping behaviours like workaholism. Absolutely, that's true. And also the having material resources to absorb adversities always helps, you know, or sometimes hinders. I mean, some people could go on with a drink problem a lot longer because they can fund it. They don't hit the wall, you know. Do you think social class is more entrenched in Scotland and or UK as a whole? No, I think it's pretty widely, evenly distributed. I think we do have a history in Scotland. I was talking to Cat Boyd and David Jameson earlier on today in a wee podcast we did, and there is, in a lot of Scottish literature and a lot of Scottish political pamphlets and stuff throughout our history and writings that there has always been a class consciousness here. Do you think conversations around mental health should be more focused on class, as both the treatment and triggers are dependent on our positions in society? Yeah, I think generally bringing a class analysis into most things would be useful. You prove to any doubting audience, Abby Normal, you prove to any doubting audience that class exists. Can you speak to what you think political class, government's perception of class is, and how their class attitudes affect social policy? I would question the political class's ability or conception of class. I mean, all of their decision making, particularly political strategy, is all about is all based on assumptions that they make about people because of where they come from, what they might believe, or what might interest them, or what might attract them to a certain political party or whatever. But it tends to just be applied at the same level as maybe advertisers would apply it, you know? So here's this demographic and they believe in law and order and they want tougher immigration, right? That's about the depth of analysis. And then once they secure that support, fuck those people. I mean, look at these fishermen, fishing industry. I know you got a lot of kind of Guardian readers and stuff like that, and all kind of laughing about it. Ha ha, they all voted for Brexit. Fuck them. But if you've visited, has anybody visited a coastal town recently? That's dependent on maybe 2 or 3 industries throughout its whole history. No one's going there on holiday anymore. And the fishing's dried up. So I don't know how funny that is. And maybe they voted for Brexit, but I mean, politicians are devious. You call that radio? Do you think a middle class born person would ever hear shit for being paid to present a documentary? Why are you stuck in your classes? Classes is so old fashioned, not applicable today. Maybe so. Maybe I can. Maybe the kind of it depends, because if the word class just brings to mind, like, Karl Marx, or those years in the Labour Party where there was real like struggle for what direction it was going to go, and you had Tony Benn and people like Arthur Scargill caused all sorts of chaos in the country and all that. If that time period is your conception of class, then you're absolutely right. It's a bit different now how we discuss it and what it means in this new economy. But I mean, I'm not stuck on it from choice. Put it that way. What is your takeaway point from doing the show? I don't really have one. I just I, 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 I'm grateful to be doing it. I'm grateful to do the work. I think it came out well. Next thing, I would like to maybe do something that was like a feature length thing with Stephen. That was just a bit more self-contained, maybe a 90-minute thing. I like the episodic thing, but it's difficult to orientate yourself within it because you don't do it chronologically. But I think a self-contained thing that was very focused, it would be easier to sort of stay in that zone. Right, 2 more minutes, and then we'll pack up. Any reflections on your visit to the Doorkeepers in the Elgin? Yeah, I was just fascinated. I was just fascinated with this sport. I knew so little about it. I was fascinated by how intelligent pigeons are and how fast they are. Amazing stuff. Really like the nuance you brought out from moving up in class can leave you feeling displaced. Where do you feel home is? Well, actually, my I feel home now with my children and my wife. You know, when I'm away, I've got a homing instinct to get home. I don't do much other than my work and my family, really. Even out of lockdown, when I'm finished work, I come home. That's it. I don't, and it's not. It's not. I'm not a hermit. I'm not hiding in the house because I don't want to hang about with people. I'm just. These are the things that are important. Do you think true equality can ever be achieved? People will always judge each other's human nature. Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I don't. I'm kind of. I'm not trying to imagine a utopia where every person gets the same exact crack at the whip. Otherwise, the society's not fair. It's more kind of. Well, you remember what it was like when we were growing up? I mean, we just got on with it because we didn't know any better. But you think I won't mention any names, but think of some of the teachers. You know, the aggression of some of the teachers at our school. I can think of one in particular. You know, manhandling pupils, grabbing them by the scruff of the neck. I saw somebody getting battered. Do you know what I mean? Like, how does that happen? Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, in the back of that person's head, they're just thinking, this is just a scumbag. Who gives a fuck if I say about this wee guy? Who's going to come up? No, this wee guy's got nobody. Who's going to challenge me? Doof, doof, doof. I think that situations like that could probably deal without them. Although, to be fair, that kind of teaching technique was pioneered by the upper classes, who obviously were, for whom education was the exclusive preserve until very recent in our social history, where, as outlined in the documentary, working class people needed a very basic education so that they could become servants for the middle classes. Do you think, this is the last question, do you think the belt before it was abolished played a part in problem of violence in Scotland? Absolutely. No doubt about it. Go and talk to people who got belted. I mean, this has only gone 30 years back. Very, very serious. Very serious. You're talking about the physical assault and emotional abuse of children in full view of other children, based on some kind of, and based on an assumption that is how you get the best out of children. This wasn't the Victorian times that this was happening. It was only properly outlawed in the 90s. So this says a lot about how unsophisticated emotionally we are as a society, particularly how we've treated children. And that kind of treatment is still going on in prisons and aspects of education. We still use negative incentives to regiment people, to socialize people into what is expected of them. And I think that needs to change. Okay, guys, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you for hanging about. And look out. Obviously, the Darren Speaks podcast will be going back probably to weekly. Now that all this is over. So look out for that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I'll maybe post some wee vlogs and stuff for you from the house now and again, now that I've got this wee set up. So thanks everybody for watching the series and tuning in. Meant a lot. It was nice to feel supported as it was going on, you know. Very grateful. And as soon as I have any information about what's happening next, then you'll be the second to know after I've told my wife. Take it easy.